And welcome everybody back to another episode of Enter the Unknown. My name is Adam.
And I'm Todd.
There he goes. Tonight we got a special guest coming on the show, Thomas Sewid. And this is an interview I've been waiting for a very long time. I'm very excited about. He's been around for many years and made friendships with very amazing people like John Bennernagel over the years and people like that, and then researching all this good stuff. He has a very vast knowledge of the topic at hand, what we're going to talk about tonight. So he's going to share his encounters, experiences, and vast knowledge of what he knows of the cryptid known as Sasquatch over the years. So let's bring him on. Welcome to the show, Thomas. How's it going tonight?
Going good. Thanks for inviting me on.
So can you give a brief description about yourself, and we'll, after that we'll start going into your encounters and experiences and talk about your research that you do.
Sure. I'm First Nations, which is known in Canada as a North American Indian. And I belong to the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe from northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, out on the coast. And of all the Indian tribes in North America, we're the closest tied to the Chunahwa, the Sasquatch. It's our highest ranked crest. It's found in our dances, masks, art, totem poles, you name it. It's everywhere up in northern Vancouver Island and throughout the Pacific Northwest. I live here in Forks, Washington on the Olympic Peninsula. I moved down to Washington State with my common law wife, Peggy, during COVID. And then I was working, commercial fishing and going back up to Canada. And I even went 2 years ago, to St. Louis fishing on the Mississippi for invasive Asian carp. And I was a commercial fisherman for over 40 years. And all of a sudden I told Peggy, I said, they're not paying me what I want. And my leg's blowing out. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. I got to retire from commercial fishing. So, I came back to Seattle and I did the native art of Sasquatches for SasquatchTheLegend.com in Forks, probably one of the bigger Sasquatch stores and museums. And they opened up 5 years ago. So I had a friendship with them and they needed a worker. So I volunteered to come live in the company house where I'm at, 2 blocks from the store. And all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, they made me the manager. So I manage SasquatchTheLegend.com here in Forks, Washington. I take people out on Sasquatch expeditions here on the peninsula as well as up on Vancouver Island. And, it's nice being in the store because, on numerous television shows like Discovery Channel's Expedition Bigfoot Season 6, numerous episodes, star in the movie American Sasquatch with David Paulides. And I think I'm in 6 or 8 different scenes. And I also star in a movie, Bigfoot Girl, and I've done hundreds of podcasts, video casts, been on the Sasquatch conference circuit since 2014. So, I'm pretty well known as one of North America's leading experts and specialists on Sasquatch because of the adult lifetime living in the bush of coastal British Columbia, being a grizzly bear hunting guide for over 20 years, eco-tourist operator, bringing people to see grizzly bears and orca whales, humpback whales, sea kayak expeditions, working in the bush, living out there, and being a commercial fisherman, traveling the entire British Columbia coast for a lifetime. And right from a young, basically child, I was working on those boats, but we'd end up in communities throughout my career where you can only access the place by boat or float plane. And you'd always, have that bush interaction where people, you run into them walking through their community, or they come down the dock and talk with you. And I always ask them, what do you know about Sasquatch? And boy, did I ever learn a lot about Sasquatch. So British Columbia, and, being a hunting guide and living in the bush, I had my experiences where I was plugging my ears at night going, la, 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 I don't hear that. Go to sleep, Tom, go to sleep. You don't want to hear that. So basically that's what, my life is done. And now, my rule, I guess, or code is to, 61 years old, long in the tooth now, I'm an elder. And it's my job now to, in my language, Noosa, tell the stories, teach people. And what I do with social media and television and everything is to pass on my extensive knowledge of Sasquatch, because most people can't compare to me because they've never lived in that bush like I did for years and have the close encounters, numerous ones I have had through my life. So I'm able to pass on my experiences, my understanding, my perspectives. And number one thing I teach people is always respect Sasquatch. Never think of killing them or harming them. You always show them respect and they'll show it back to you. But the best thing is Sasquatch shamanism is teaching us hairless bipedals to be a better human, a better bipedal. Be like Sasquatch. Be very respectful.
Yeah, I can understand that. So now that you did, would you care to start sharing some of your encounters that you were talking about and sharing with us?
Oh yeah, it's like right now it's May. Everyone's getting a hold of me, and they're where are the Sasquatches? Where should I be right now? I'm going to go camping and investigating this weekend. Right now, if you want to see a Sasquatch like I did during this time of year, is get up where the snow is receding in the Alpines. As the snow recedes up the mountain, the vegetation just explodes like a supernova. And that offers easy, accessible nutrients for the ungulates and rodents. So your hoofed animals like deer, elk, mountain goat, and your rodents, marmots, ground squirrels, mice, other things. And then all of your predators are going up there. And they're capitalizing on that new growth and open area to see. And the female ungulates are going to start fawn dropping here pretty quick, if not already. And that's where the wise bears and the wolves and the Sasquatches are. They're up there, number one, capitalizing on, as the snow melts and recedes, it exposes animals that froze to death and died during the fall and early winter last year and got covered in snow. As their remains are exposed, the turkey vultures, the eagles, the ravens, the whiskey jacks, they fly in for that. Sasquatch and other animals just look up and see where those birds are, go up there, and there's a dead elk or a dead deer. A lot of people might cringe and say, well, it's carrion, it's rotten meat. Well, in most cases, it's not, because it just got exposed. And if it is carrion, every continent, excluding Antarctica, we hairless bipedals eat, in some nations, cultures, tribes, we eat rotten food. And so rotten food to animals and Sasquatch, it's just something that they probably eat as well, the Sasquatch, because they need to capitalize on it. It's easy pickings, easy food. So what if it's a little gamey? We eat hot dogs. Imagine what's in a hot dog. Yuck.
I know what's in hot dogs. My dad worked for a meat processing plant for like 2 months before he realized what was in hot dogs and bologna. And he came home and he goes, no hot dogs, no bologna allowed in this house ever formed.
Yeah. So I had a cousin back in the day when I was younger, and he used to like going up in the Alpines. We used to call it the stairway, God's doorstep, because the sun rises, sunsets, the constellations of stars and falling stars, they're just amazing up there. And the vocalizations and echoing of all the animals that are up there, Sasquatch included, that's why we liked going up there. It was so unique. Most people don't get to experience that. And it was May when we're up there, because I know we're trying to go up some channels, valleys, and we'd be stopped by snow. So we're just looking around up there, and it was windy. And we're walking, and you're kind of bundled up. And, our packs are usually about 25 pounds at the most, and I carried the shotgun. My cousin, he carried the rifle usually. As we're walking, he nudged me, pointed to the left, and I looked across it was like a valley where on the side of the mountains with no trees, a little bit of trees, sparse, but across the Alpine Valley, there was probably a big family of Sasquatch, probably a 5 or 6. I remember looking at the big male who was at the back, following like a wolf pack. He was being at the lead one was second biggest male, but he was walking as fast as the slowest member in the clan, like wolves do. And that's what caught my eye right away, was seeing that hierarchy and that protection of your family unit. And then that female, as I was looking at it, you know, she kept real timid. She'd look every now and then at me and my cousin walking, but she had a baby on it. All of a sudden be on her back, and then all of a sudden it's like a little bug it'd be in the front looking at us, and then crawl on the back again, looking at us. And I would say we were probably 200, just over 200 yards across from them. But it was real neat. But we knew that respectful, we couldn't stop and turn and look at it because that would alarm them, that would disrespect them. So we just kept sort of side glancing as we walked until that I noticed the big male kept, you know, he was really eyeballing me. So when I looked at him and I put palms up, meaning I come in peace, I have nothing to be afraid of. And then I pointed to where I was going to go, and I went like that with my fingers and tapped my left leg to show him that me and my cousin were going to go up that draw and move away from them. And that's what we did. And as we walked, we just did like a Sasquatch. We kept our backs to them. We didn't turn around and look at them. We let them be. But I, you know, always remember that was one of my better encounters of Sasquatch, because number one, there was more than one individual. It was a whole family unit. And they were up in the Alpine doing their thing, and we were out exploring, and it was just so neat to see them. But one of the things that I remember was the female was brown, and the rest of the clan, and the baby was kind of dark chocolate, and the rest of them were all jet black. So there was a color variation within that family unit. And they weren't carrying anything other than the baby. And, you know, you could see the big, long strides they were making and lifting their feet up real high like Patty does. And then going to Patty, you know. I remember when I saw that in a movie as a young kid, I was probably around 12, I guess. And about a year prior, Dad and I were driving down the Vancouver Island Highway up in the north end between Campbell River and Sewid. And it's bush. It's wild. Just paved road, that's it. And logging roads branching off everywhere. But we're coming down a hill, and there was going to be a right turn, and across on the other lane on the side of the road would be a metal barrier because of the steep bank of forest. And there would be a pullover spot because people would pull over there to use the garbage can. There was a cement garbage can, bear-proof. So you knew that it was coming up. But as we went down the hill and we turned to the right, the headlights illuminated the garbage can, then the guardrail, and there was a big black hippie sitting on it, I thought. It put its left arm down, put its right arm up at the same time, blocking our headlights, and then it sprung and jumped. And you could see the long hair hanging off the arms and the armpit, the sides of its body, its big mane of black hair, and this, probably over 8 feet, that Sasquatch. But as he launched, you see the crack of his butt, and then you see the soles of his feet, these big feet that were grayish white. And poof, he disappears into the slope and the trees and the blackness. And we passed by, and Dad's sort of swerving. Holy smokes, we just saw a Sasquatch. And I started talking to him about, you know, what is it? And that's when he really joined it. That he was, well, Sasquatch is two nothing. What you see at the potlatch is the mask and the fur regalia, the basket on the back in some cases. That's a Sasquatch, female Sasquatch. You see the totem poles with the big breasts, outstretched arms, puckered lips, sleepy eyes. Two nothing. Sasquatch. We just saw one. And then within a year, I'm watching Unsolved Mysteries at the movie theater, Leonard Nimoy, you know, narrating. And I saw the Patty clip for the first time in my life. And I said, wow, that's exactly what I saw on the highway last year. And the feet coming up with Patty as she's walking away and does the famous frame 352 look, and then walks with her back, and you see her feet really pronounced coming up like a wolf loping. And you can see the whitish gray soles of her feet. And that's exactly what I saw that night. So, you know, it brings up an interesting point, you know. What do you think of all these people questioning with AI, Patty, Bob Gimlin, and Roger Patterson? Well, like I said in the beginning, learn respect from Sasquatch. How dare anyone attack Bob Gimlin, who's living? He's an elder. Smarten up. You need a smack upside your head and a kick in the ass. You don't disrespect and attack your elders, number one. Nope. And also, it's all those couch potatoes who've never been in the bush and seen a Sasquatch. All you got to do after you've seen a Sasquatch is look back at Patty and say, that's exactly what I saw. That's not a fraud standing Muppet with makeup and dog hairs glued to the face of a human. That's the real deal.
Yeah,
I love that.
me and Todd talk about him. When we first started up the podcast, I like that little name you gave him. No, what you just said right there, with the people talking about the Patterson Gimlin footage and everything like that. We received some hateful comments on our first episode because we got into that, and man, I totally agree with you, and that's what this one guy, he got mad at us, because it was like, we were sitting there saying, like, come on, leave Bob Gimlin alone. This guy has heard it all of his life. He has stuck to his story. It has never changed. None of that. And he has received so much ridicule over it, but man, he still stands tall,
Yeah.
Sticks to
no,
it.
he's a good friend of Peggy and I, my wife. We love him dearly. He's a great man. And pardon me, him and Roger definitely own the Sasquatch. And it's a lot of people go, like when I look on the internet and I see pictures and art creations and AI creations nowadays of Sasquatch, and you see these gorilla, chimpanzee, open flared nostrils flat on the face. Sasquatches have human noses. And when you look at these big hillbilly biker beards on these Sasquatches to me are the foundation relic hominid of the North American, Central American, and South American indigenous. And that to me is Eke Gekame, the creator's perfect creation of a human being. He made them bigger, hairier, but they had pronounced philtrums, the distance between the top of the lip and the bottom of the nose. They had nocturnal vision, and they had the ability to excrete scent out of their armpit glands, and their bodies were bigger and covered in hair. That was the perfect human. So when I don't want to get too deep into it, but I've listened and read a little bit and researched a bit about apparently in the Bible and this Nephilim thing, they were giant hair-covered creatures. When you look at the art carved in some of the cathedrals in Europe, you'll see the hairy little Sasquatch or form of a Sasquatch. The old wood block prints, you see a hair-covered Sasquatch in Europe. So to me, that I'm telling like one of my friends, and you probably know him, Ray Harewood. He does a Sasquatch magazine and that out of Idaho, but he's really good with AI. And and I said, hey, look, I want you to take a picture of preconceived Neanderthal from Europe, Eastern Asia, Western Asia, where it looks like Jesus Christ. Caucasian skin, looks like it was born on the banks of the Thames River in England thousands of years ago. But if you take that Neanderthal and give him black skin and then put AI magic of hair on its body, what do you got? You have a Sasquatch. Take the Yowie, Ray, and take an Aborigine from Australia and then put hair on its body. It's already got the black skin and a little bit more muscles, and you have a Yowie. And take and I gave him a picture. Take an Indian from North America, because when you look at I did some research the other day on a post I did recently, and the camera was invented, black and white glass plate cameras were invented in 1826. Well, contact was full on in North America, Canada, and the US. Well, those cameras made it over to US, and they would take pictures of Indians. And if you look at those pictures, especially Roger Curtis, he has a book on the pictures he took in the late 1800s, early 1900s. You'll notice that the Indians were very Tuthlam in my language, very black skin, very dark. Well, if you look at some of those Indians, and I got a great picture of one who has a little bit of a beard and a mustache. It's really sparse. It wouldn't be like yours, real heavy, because it's a thoroughbred Indian. If I ever tried to grow a beard, people laugh at me because it's about as long as the tip of my pinky, and it's all sparse everywhere because I'm a thoroughbred Indian. I can count my chest hairs on 3 fingers. I can, count my armpit hairs on 2 hands. My wife accused me 18 years ago of shaving my legs because I don't have hair on my legs. 'Cause I'm a thoroughbred Indian. Well, Sasquatches are the same. They're thoroughbred Indians with very limited, sparse facial hair and black skin. So to me, when I look at Sasquatch pictures, right away, as Dr. John Binderdagel, who was a great friend of mine on Vancouver Island for, 1991 till 2017 when he passed, he always taught me, when in doubt, throw it out. So when I see the flared chimpanzee, gorilla noses, the non-big philtrum area, the biker beard, I just toss those ones out. It's just bunk and BS. But, so that's what I teach people is what to look for in Sasquatches. And people always tell me, well, how come there's any good pictures? Well, if you're like me for the last, I guess maybe since I got interested in Sasquatch, when I went on a podcast in 2014, Wes Germer's Sasquatch Chronicles, and I got invited to conferences and do other podcasts, I started saving the good pictures I was coming across on the internet. And I joined hundreds of Sasquatch, cryptozoology, Bigfoot Facebook groups. And so some of those pictures have disappeared. They're so good. And I think it's the men in black probably pulled up, rang the doorbell and said, excuse me, but we traced that picture. You got a trail camera picture of a Sasquatch. Yeah. Well, how much do you want so that we can buy your silence? You never show it, speak about it, and destroy it. Oh, well, give me $50,000 and 2 plane tickets to Hawaii for 2 weeks, all inclusive, and you got a deal. Next thing you know, the video, their picture disappears. But I've saved them. And, I'd show people, like, they look at my good Sasquatch folder and they're just like, oh, I've seen that one. I'm like, yeah, that one I purposely put on there. It's actually from a movie. It's a Sasquatch in a river stream dragging a dead deer. But that's actually from a movie. And then all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, I've seen that one, but I haven't seen it recently. I say, yeah, that's one of the ones that just magically disappeared. And then all the pictures I get, especially in the last, since I went to Omaha Indian Reserve back in 5 years ago and met Lucas White, an Omaha Indian tribe member who's a close friend of Peggy and I, but he's a master when it comes to Sasquatch because he was looked after by them when he used to run away from foster care between, up until he was 18, living in the forest, the Macy, Nebraska area on the reserve in the hardwood forest, and he was protected by Sasquatches, which they call Sitonga, for almost, I think, from about 12 years old, roughly, till he was 18, so 5-6 years. So he has a very good knowledge of Sasquatch. When I came back from Omaha Indian Reserve, I actually emailed Dr. John Binderdagel, who was still alive, Les Stroud, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and from the American Primate Conservancy back when I was getting along with them. I got no use for them now. But anyway, I emailed them, and the title of the email was, I found Tarzan. I found someone who grew up with the apes, the Sasquatch, which was Lucas. And so I send them pictures on modern day smoke signal, Facebook Messenger. Hey, you came across this one. What's your opinion? Nope. Good try. Nope. Oh, that one's interesting. Yeah, that's a Sasquatch. And it's always the same. They're basically a human with a hair-covered body. They are humans. And that's why the Indian tribes talk about them as being members of the other tribe. And a lot of people go, well, how do you know this? I said, well, because one time a Sasquatch was coming into my camp when I was building cabins in 2012, and it was opening a metal lockbox with a twist-tie wire. So it had an opposable thumb. It wasn't a bear. And it was stealing my garlic, and I was giving my apples, and I was giving my crew heck, quit eating all my apples. And, Darcy would look at me with most of his teeth missing. I don't eat apples. John, I don't like eating apples. And then we don't like garlic either. And so I'm checking the camp out, being a master tracker from being a hunting guide and living in bush all my life. And I'm finding that on the prevailing winds of Northwest, the Sasquatch was standing at the edge of my lumber tool collection under a tarp so it didn't get wet. And the grass was just pounded flat. You could see his push trail into the blackberries, through the ferns, and into the hemlock alder forest. And when the prevailing southeast was blowing, a little elevated bluff above our kitchen cabin area. You could see the dead wood and everything, and sticks and leaf litter was just pummeled to pulp from a Sasquatch standing. And you actually could see the buttock marks in the sawdust type texture of the ground, where it was sitting there looking right at our picnic table between our cabins, where we'd sit at night and play cards and listen to music. And he's watching my camp. So I told the boys, you know, watch out. When you guys go to the outhouse, you better go together. And no more going wandering off by yourself. We got a Sasquatch, maybe more, on the island with us. The island was 250 acres. It's not a big island. So they were kind of, yeah, sure. And, you know, doubting me. So I left and I went to visit Peggy. And pardon me, the two boys, John and Darcy, were on the island. And all of a sudden my cell phone rang. It was Darcy. You know BS, hey bro. I said, about what? But the Jonah Sasquatch. I said, no, I don't BS about Jonah Sasquatch. Why? What's up? Big stick come flying out of the forest, landed in the bay's water. It was calm. So I said, don't worry about it. Start talking Kwakwala Indian to him, our language. He'll be cool. And don't be pointing no gun at them. Yeah, okay. And then I would find out later they jumped in the speedboat and took off in the darkness. Thank God it wasn't windy, and went to Alert Bay where the community is, you know, hour away on speedboat. They got scared, didn't want to stay on the island with the Sasquatch. So when I returned, they filled me in about the Sasquatch activity. And so I was, you know, noticing, okay, I brought more garlic and apples in. We started testing it. We put I was saying, you know, the garlic's going missing, and that was on the outside table where the kitchen is, because we had an outside kitchen. And John's like, no, it's not the mice. I seen the mice on the table eating the crumbs, and it just sniffed the garlic and turned away. They don't like garlic, so it's not the mice. So we put a garlic clove on the table with a clear glass on top of it, and went to the picnic table between the two cabins. It's end of the work shift. It wasn't quite dark yet. We're playing cards, Facebooking, whatever, drinking pop. And all of a sudden, John gets up. I'm going to the cooler. Who wants a pop? I said, yeah, grab me a pop. And all of a sudden, he comes running back. The garlic's gone. The cup's still there. And we run over there, and John couldn't have done it. The cup still is upside down, but the garlic clove is gone. And so I stupidly grabbed the cup. I should have picked it up carefully and brought it to the police, the fingerprint. Learned something that night. So anyway, we know we got a Sasquatch now. And a couple nights later, it's drizzling. So I'm outside of the cabin that we're building. Me and Darcy were the only ones on the island. But I was on the edge of where the porch is going to be. And there's a little bit of an overhang, maybe with 10 inches of overhang in tin. So I'm trying to out of the drizzle, the backs, you know, side the wind, out of the wind. I'm smoking my cigarette because we don't want to have cigarette smoke in the cabins for our tourists. And all of a sudden I see a stick come out of the bush, fly out, spinning. No, it wasn't that long, maybe 3 foot long, 1.5 inches in diameter alder branch. And I'm like, well, that's odd. It's coming from the bush into the wind and landing on the beach. It should be going the other direction.
Yeah.
So I inched my way to the edge of the cabin, flicked my cigarette butt, and I jumped and did a 180 turn and looked behind my cabin. And me and this young, lanky, teenage, skinny looking, not a juvenile, but an adolescent Sasquatch, eyeball locked each other about, I'd say, cabin was 18 feet long, probably 25 feet, 30 feet away. And he looked surprised. I looked surprised. We both looked at, both turned and ran. I jumped into the cabin laughing. Darcy's there with a 30-30. Quit picking on the judo class. I'm not picking on it. Me and him spooked each other. It's a teenager. She's been stealing our food, my garlic. I said, hopefully I scared the bejesus out of him and he won't bother us. Well, sure enough, you know, I was thinking, you know, a couple days later, things go missing again. And we're getting activity around the camp. We have our non-Indian carpenter who showed up, and he's finishing up the last cabin. And this is mid-October, late October, so all the alder leaves have fallen down. They're like a maple tree. and we can see into the forest of hemlock, which is an evergreen, and spruce and fir and cedar. And, they're all pecker poles about a foot in diameter. And I'm thinking, I'm going to do something about the Sasquatch. I got to show him who's boss here. It's my island. I ain't leaving. And he's been poking around the camp. And the one I seen when the carpenter was working on the other side of the cabin in the bush, there's a fallen alder tree, been down 3 or 4 years. And, it's a little bit rotten. No wind, no nothing. All of a sudden, midday, sunny, crack. And something broke off it. Sure, if alder tree, it's sitting there, big limb might have broke off, rotten. But bush wise, instead of looking into the bush, which is a wall, I dropped and looked through the salmonberry and alder saplings underneath, and that's when I saw, like Patty, the big soles of a big Sasquatch foot's coming up as it's walking away. So what that Sasquatch was doing is what they're notoriously known for, being the watcher, always watching us. It put its foot on an alder tree that was falling and just gave all its weight and cracked it. And then we went and investigated. It was about 9 inches, 10 inches in diameter where he broke that fallen down alder limb. So he was letting me know, smarten up. I'm bigger than you. I'm tougher than you. And I saw his feet. I know it's not the juvenile, lanky teenager I saw a few nights before. So I'm like, okay, you guys, I mean it. We got to tighten up. We got a pretty big Sasquatch, and that was an aggressive move. So just keep your 6 and be smart and be bushy. And then I finally just had enough of it. So I went and I did something a few days beforehand, before the carpenter got there, where I hid in a pile of leaves and I popped out. The teenager was coming in a second time into my camp just before dark. But when I was at my trailhead with this pile of leaves, probably 5, 6 feet high, alder leaves, I popped out of it and I'm 6 feet away from that juvenile Sasquatch. And when I come out of the leaves, I'm like, hey, leave my garlic and apples alone, you skinny bastard. Go away, you black bugger. And he looked at me, pulled the alder tree, got up in the trail, put his arms up and aggressive at me. I come shooting out the leaves, did the same thing. He turned and ran through like a freight train. So I let it be known. So that's why Daddy came in and did that tree break. He was not happy with me putting his son in his place. And now I know I got more than one Sasquatch. The foot what I saw was a big male. So next day we're working away, nice and sunny, and I'm painting the inside of a cabin with a native whale design, and standing outside, and I'm just looking at the design, trying to get some inspiration and balance. And because I'm an artist, I do native art, and all of a sudden, I just looked up through the alder trees up the hill, the slope. And there's a big cedar stump. I'd been up there from when they logged in the early 1900s. And it's probably 7 foot in diameter at cedar stump, probably 5 feet tall at the bottom of the slope. And it looks off, but I'm just eye locking what I'm looking at. And it's probably, I would say, 70, 80 yards away. So I go, Darcy, bring me my Bushnell scope. It was in a cardboard box. I still got it right here in the house. It's going to be in the museum, because when Darcy gave it to me, I slapped him and said, smarten up, take it out of the box and crank it to 9 power. So when he gave it to me, I looked at 9 power, and there's that big cedar stump. But like me, when I was in those leaves, hidden in leaves, is this head about that big, no neck, huge shoulders of this male Sasquatch covered in alder leaves, with his arms splayed out and his legs splayed out. So he's breaking silhouette signature. And I'm looking at him and we're eye locked, and I'm looking through the scope. I'm like, hey, take a look. It's that Sasquatch, the big one. So we're all passing the scope around. Also, he stands up. Leaves are falling off him. He turns and walks up the hill. The non-Indian carpenter quit on the spot. Packed his gear. We had to bring him back to Vancouver Island. The last we ever saw of him. But I told the boys, after, they got back, after one of them got back dropping off our carpenter. I said, we're going to be there for another couple of weeks. I said, don't have to worry about anything. I pissed higher up the stump than that big Sasquatch. I think him and son are going to leave now. And exactly what happened. And I've been at peace with that family clan ever since. I've always been at peace with them, but I basically outfoxed Daddy. I showed him I got some tricks up my sleeve. I just popped your son twice, and now I've eyeballed you and you're trying to camo out and go Rambo on my butt? No. Get off my island. This is my turf. And that's what he did.
So, one of the things, you kind of give me goosebumps sometimes when you are describing the, with your encounters, because that's exactly how I talked with mine. No hair on the face whatsoever. But when you sat there and you talked about the upper lip and with the nose and everything, one of the things when I had my encounter, I don't know how it did it. It flipped its top lip up towards its nostrils to show me its teeth. And that image will always stick in my head.
It's just a grimace. And if you look at, Sasquatch investigators, there's no such thing as a Sasquatch researcher. We haven't had one yet because all these people that are calling themselves researchers are so full of BS, their eyes should be brown. And because you're not going to be a Sasquatch researcher, you're going to be a stumbling, bumbling, speculating investigator like me until you get the crispy pictures and video and get on the cover of National Geographic with the Sasquatch and do like Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall and Leakey and get your editorial inside the National Geographic. Then you become a Sasquatch researcher. So there is no such thing. But when you research, investigate, part of investigation is doing research. If you're going to research, then you have to be able to go and research the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe, otherwise known as Kwagyolth. And, you can just go to my website, sasquatchisland.com, and all the terminology is written in there, Kwakwaka'wakw, Kwagyolth, and research our Tunaqa. Sometimes it's TZ, most times it's DZU or O. I spell it DZOO, Tunaqa, AKWA. But there's different variations to that, or Wild Woman of the Woods. And look at the masks. Look at the feast dishes that were some of them 16 feet long, carved from a massive cedar log. Look at the daggers called slave killers with like a mask image of the Tunaqa. Look at what you guys would call totem poles. We call memorial poles in the graveyards and standing outside of our traditional homes called the big house, longhouse. And then now they're in museums, a lot of them. And you can go to Totem Poles of British Columbia on Facebook and scroll like I did last night and see the multitude of Kwakwaka'wakw Tunaqa carvings and house posts that were in the interior holding up our roof beams of our big houses. Now they're in museums and we have pictures of them. You can see the memorial poles, the dowry poles, which were standing, usually holding like a shield. And when part of the shield was missing, because what it was a chief has a copper shield called a kwakwa. And he might break it in half and give half to a rival chief. And as soon as he touches it, the copper shield might be called copper of 10 war canoes. That's its value. As soon as you touch half of it, 5 war canoes worth of value, it doubles 100% in debt to 10. And every 3 months, if you don't have a potlatch at rival chief and give that rival chieftain the equivalent of the interest compiled in goods, and you don't make your payment, it might be now the piece of copper you have from that rival chief has put you in debt for 100 war canoes worth of value, but you're bankrupt. You can't do it. So the chief gets a carving of a Tunaqa holding that copper shield made of wood with half of it or a chunk of it broken, and it's a ridicule pole. It's like doing that to your enemy, and pay your debts, you idiot. I mean, that was our court case. We didn't go to debt courts or collections. We put up a ridicule pole. And if you go into Seattle and you go to the Burke Museum at the University of Washington, you'll see a replica from one of my Kwakwaka'wakw tribal village of Lai, of the Chawe-Denuk tribe of the Kwakwaka'wakw. And Peter Holm, he carved it, and it's standing there in front of the museum to this day with a copper with a chunk missing. So the Sasquatch, what I'm getting at is when you look at the Tunaqa, puckered up lips, and cover their nose with their lips. Whoop, 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 like my shirt. That's the call of the Sasquatch. Whoop, whoop, whoop. That's how they communicate. I'm here. And then all of a sudden they'll chatter, roar, and talk back and forth from island to island. And I've heard it numerous times. But that puckered up lip is the same way as me doing this. Getting my fingers wet and shoving them in my nose so my nose hairs get wet, and like a chonach, a Sasquatch, a coyote, a wolf, a bear, a cougar. Get those nose hairs wet so you absorb more scent. You own that scent now. You're not just, oh, I think I smell something. When you wet your fingers or with a water bottle your fingers like me, and don't do it again with those fingers, use your other hand. But anyway, you're going to really be able to smell everything. And Sasquatch, one time I was sitting there and in the bush, and years ago, and I was playing bush chess. I happened to be in an area where, hey, wet my fingers, got my nose hairs wet. Hey, I smell Sasquatch. So I went in fighter jet mode, using windage to my advantage, crawling through the ferns, breaking, hiding behind things, tree peeking, deep in shadow. Like I went Sasquatch 101. And as I'm looking, and I look down slope, and there's this big Sasquatch looking for me. Or hunting, I don't know. And you see him lift his lip up, get it wet, get his nose hairs wet, and he's just looking. And all of a sudden he shuddered, vibrated, and you could see his oily black hair, almost like it was like from a science fiction movie. And no, it wasn't cloaking because that's bunk and BS, but it was wild what I just saw. And then he looked up to his right, and I looked up, or to his left, and I looked up. And there was a smaller Sasquatch up in the tree, hanging on, licking his lips, licking with his tongue, his nose, and looking into the wind, looking for what they were looking for. Maybe they were hunting me, trying to find me. I don't know. But I was just like, holy smokes. They body communicated. So Indians, Ewas, deer, clay, black bear, pat your ass and maybe your white t-shirt, wapiti, white ass, elk. We don't, hey, I see a bear. When you're hunting bear, you use body language. And then if you go like that in the bush, you're saying, oh no, Sasquatch. So we use body language. Indians are notorious for it, especially Hollywood Indians, where you see them over doing all the guru finger talk and everything. Oh, Kimosabi, go. Big plain desert, So, but Indians always use and still do use body language. And what is the Sasquatch? It's just a member of the other tribe, just a bigger, hair-covered, blacker Indian. And I watched it vibrate to communicate to that younger one up there. And all of a sudden I come out and, yo, Sasquatch, he turned, looked at me, and they just bing, sprung and disappeared, crashing down the slope. That one, you could hear him boom when he hit the forest floor and crashed away from me. But I had got a checkmate. I had put the bingo on the two Sasquatches. And that, to me, that's what I call bush chess. I did it last October when I had a cancer scare. And I'm like, holy smokes, I might be worm bait here for pretty soon and 6 feet under. I better go carpe diem, seize the day. There was a sighting up here in vocalizations in Beaver, so I drove, 10 miles away and parked at a gate on a logging road, and I went to where I suspected where the Sasquatch was vocalizing, and as soon as I got out of the vehicle, I dove into the ferns, and our ferns are like the top of a pineapple, but 20 times bigger, I imagine, from what I've seen in Hawaii when it comes to pineapple shrubs. And they're almost 6 feet tall in the fall. So I jumped into that cabbage and I'm just snaking through it, crawling quietly, worked my way with windage up to a rocky outcropping area, knowing that I'm downwind, I have the advantage. And I'm sitting there in a little overhang because there's a little bit of drizzle from time to time. I live on the Olympic Peninsula. Us Indians rust out here. We don't suntan. It's so much rain out here. And after an hour and a half or so, or however long it was, I look and there's 2 deer coming up, a doe with a buck and rut, tongue out, swollen neck, wanting to get on. She don't want nothing to do with him. And they're doing their thing, eating, and he's doing his thing, trying to get a piece. And all of a sudden, she just looks up the slope into the regenerative second growth slash, nose going, flagtail comes up, she turns and boop, 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 down the slope where she just came up. She wanted out of there. And of course, dumb buck and Rut, he's right behind her. So I'm like, okay, something spooked him. Wait a few minutes, watching, looking. Time goes by, nothing came out. So I crawl again. I get further up, more elevated, and I'm looking. There's a big dead spruce tree, buckskin, no bark on it, gray white. And I crawl to the cabbage. I come up behind it, and I look to the right, like a Sasquatch tree peeking. Don't see anything. Go to the left and look. And all of a sudden, boom! Sasquatch sent it out. Seen me. He knew he was in the disadvantage because he was upwind from me, and now I seen him, and I was gonna probably smell him real anytime soon. If I walked into the wind, he just erupted that scent and let it be known that stop, turn around, and go back where you came from. You hairless bipedal asshole. You're in my turf. Probably spooked those 2 deer he was after. So I just, okay, I've been bingoed. So that day of bush chess, he got the checkmate. I turned, put my hands up, signifying that I mean no harm. I'm in peace. I pointed at where I'm going to go, and I showed my fingers. That's where I'm going. I'm walking that way back to my truck, and I left. He never followed me. I never smelled him again. After about 3 minutes walking downhill, the scent dissipated, and I just got out of there respectfully. So playing bush chess through the years, I've had a few encounters with Sasquatch, so I'm able to look at how they use their lips when they're smelling. And that's why my ancestors, when they took a block of cedar and started carving it, or a log and started carving a chunuk on there, always has the puckered lips, because that's how they vocalize, and also might be when they're trying to get the nose hairs wet so they can smell better. Even the bottom, even you just wipe your mustache, you can really smell scents out there. When I lived in bush, I really lived in bush. I hated humans back in the early 90s. I basically had some pretty nasty stuff happen to me in regards to taxation and police and cheating girlfriends. So I'm just like, I'm square pegging a round hole, living in concrete. I'm out of here. So I went into the bush to work, live, explore. And, I would spend months, years out there. I'd come in to party, cash checks, but I'd head right back out again. My life, I learned that commercial fishing is bush. So I commercial fished for over 40 years because it brought me to bush. There's, places in British Columbia where most humans will never go. I've been there. I've been in every inlet in British Columbia except for 2. And that includes the archipelago of Haida Gwaii, Queen Charlotte Islands. I used to run a little cod boat up there and fished up there. And so we gunk-holed. We explored all those little pockets when storms were up. We'd have a dinghy or an anchor in a nice sheltered bay. We'd go ashore, and the things I've seen, the evidence of Sasquatch. Well, in Haida Gwaii, they call it gogi. But, places where you see mussels, the shellfish that's, probably 10 inches to a foot long, massive mussels with probably over half a pound to 3/4 of a pound of orangish red meat inside when we cook it. But you see accumulations called middens, where probably thousands of years, few thousand years of harvesting shellfish there. And it wasn't humans. It wasn't Haida natives. It was Sasquatches coming there on the low tides, taking the shell, the big mussels, into the forest so they are not observed, and smashing them, opening them up, and eating that meat, discarding the shell. I didn't have a shovel. I didn't dig down, but you could see that whole one area was probably 40 feet long and probably 20 feet plus wide. And where there was some erosion on the bank, you could see it was over 4 feet in depth of countless mussel shells. And no indications of a Haida village of old. Because, I know my archaeology because I studied it when I was younger, and I love it. It's one of my passions. So I'm able to look at the lay of a bay or a land and say that the humans would live here. Well, the humans wouldn't live there because the prevailing southeast wind slams in there. So there's no way the Haidas would live in there, because the winter storms would smash their canoes to powder, sawdust, and their houses would be cold. Their fires wouldn't work properly. But in the Northwest, like it was that time, that bay offers perfect shelter. So the Indians, they would live at places that protected them in the wintertime from southeast storms all through the Pacific Northwest. And those are winter shellfish harvest sites. And they also, most of the winter villages give them northwest shelter as well, because a big Pacific storm, when it comes, is a typhoon. And it'll come and all of a sudden just barrel you and slam you with southeast. And if you happen to be where the eye is, the wind will just drop. And then all of a sudden, within an hour, that northwest, the tailing end hits you. And you can go from the southeast dying down to a calm to a snapping around northwest hurricane storm to hurricane force. So that bay was very good for Sasquatch, because no humans would live there. And that's why there was a big accumulation of the mussel shells and other shells, because it was a shellfish bed, but there was a rocky outcropping with the giant Pacific mussels.
When you talked about the scent glands underneath in the armpits, is that something that they know how to just? Is it like a defense mechanism? Is it like something they use for mating? What are your thoughts on that? Because I've always wondered about that.
Just like a skunk, only used for defense, offense. So my situation where it expelled last October, that was an offensive defensive move on his part. So, all you got to do is go a week without a shower and your armpits get pretty gamey and stink. BO, body odor. You go to a doctor and ask them, why do my armpits get stinky? They'll tell you, that's the remnants of scent glands when we used to have them, when way back in evolution. Sasquatch still has it. So that tells you right there, well, that's a green flag up for what is a Sasquatch. It's a human. But then if you look at the Indian names for Sasquatch, over a half a dozen tribes in North America, around that number, they have cannibal in that name. Even my tribe talks about the cannibal giant, which is Chunaf on Sasquatch. It captures misbehaving children and brings them to the invisible home in the mountains deep in the forest, where they boil them up and eat them. Interviewing one of my cousins, his family story that was told to him was, I guess an ancestor went where they found the house of Chunaf, and there's kids on sticks stuck in the ground. And, other tribes call the translation from their Indian language will mean cannibal from the mountains, cannibal from the hills, cannibal of the forest, cannibal giants. Look at Lovelock Cave. What did they do, that Indian tribe? They killed all those cannibal cinnamon-colored brown giants that were in that cave. So there's cannibal. It's telling you that the Indians are telling you what a Sasquatch is. You can only be termed a cannibal if you eat your own species. So Sasquatch, another green flag, is a human being. So I know a lot of the people that are contaminated with Christianity, and I'm a Christian, but you got to use your frontal lobe development and be able to walk a parallel path of evolution and Christianity nowadays, because so much science has come in to prove that evolution actually exists. And when you look at it on that level, like I do, then you see that Sasquatch is cannibals. And David Paulides is making a very good livelihood over the missing 411, all of the documented and non-documented reports of over 27,000 people going missing in the U.S. parks. I don't know if he's added up Canada yet, because we got the Trail of Tears on northern British Columbia. And yes, a lot of it is serial killer hairless bipedal, but I've heard the talk that they suspect on some of the missing people that it was Sasquatch related. Vancouver Island, we had a woman decapitated, left arm removed within the last decade on the rest stop on Vancouver Island, north of Roberts Lake. Body pummeled, clothing intact. She wasn't sexually abused. Police told her brother they suspected a Sasquatch killed her. We have numerous missing people throughout British Columbia and Vancouver Island especially, that they speculate that a Sasquatch probably took them. So why do Sasquatch take humans? Because we're the dumbest animal on this planet, the easiest one to hunt and take down. You just got to look at a human, and if they're wearing a camo hat, camo shirt, or like me, camo underwear, Just kidding. And you're camoed out, you're never going to see a Sasquatch because right there, they know you got a knife or a gun and probably have a gun on you. And then down here in Murica, where I live, you know, I just love it because when we go Sasquatch investigating, my buddies all packing pistols. I feel safer. And, but, you know, I'm telling them, keep it out of sight. You know, if you're going to bring it out, don't be having it on your belt or on your chest, you know, because Sasquatch sees that, smells that. You're never going to see a Sasquatch. And if they see you in camo, they're never going to come near you because you're a perceived threat. And so, you know, try to be wise about, you know, your using guns and that. And then hopefully, you do need them. I don't go in the bush without a gun. You know, that's why I'm here at 61. I lived in the bush for decades. You know, I was Bouncing Betty was always with me, my camouflage painted 12 gauge, because I didn't want to see Sasquatch. That's why I camoed up my 12 gauge. And when I go down to my cabins on Vancouver Island, which I built in 2004, and they're still there, we call it our Sasquatch research camp, investigation camp. But when I go there, I never break pattern. I walk down the slope. We go down the hill of hell, which has a rope on it from where we park our vehicles up on the logging road. It takes about 15 minutes to walk in. And when you get down to the beach, sea level, you walk through the trail, and then you come to my front of the cabins, and you come to between my my kitchen cabin and another cabin, and there's a pebble gravel beach, our benches, our fire pit. And I always look and go, oh, Sasquatches are here. They will break the underbranches of the spruce trees. And they got to go quite a ways now from my camp because they've cleared out all of the branches close to the cabins. And they'll have these piles, probably 2 feet high, 4 or 5 feet wide, piles of dry spruce twigs and branches. Sometimes one, sometimes 2 or 3. They very inquisitive. I think they like me lighting my fire. They're helping me. Oh, we better bring kindling for Tom. He should be down one day, and when he does come, he walks down, acknowledges the piles of kindling, and then he always puts that boomsticks 12 gauge at the same place against that giant 4 foot in diameter stump of a live spruce tree. And then right away I get the fire going. And at night, you know, I've put 2 people on Sasquatch in that camp that have actually seen it. I've seen Sasquatches there a few times. 2006, my sister wanted to see my cabins, 5 of them that looked like native style cedar longhouses with native orchid designs painted on the front. It's a beautiful spot. No, and it's way out in the middle of Timbuk nowhere. No one goes there. And she came in because I was going in with my Dutch early 20s kayak guide because I was doing sea kayak for the whales there. And my 17-year-old native Indian tribe member from the region, who was my worker, we went in there in 2006. And Sasquatch started shaking 2 trees after I chainsaw ran out of gas for the second time. I was cutting up driftwood to get it out of there, out of the bay. But anyway, when I ran out of gas and put it down, I asked the young fella, Ryan, throw me a Pepsi, and he threw me one. I took a big swig because I was hot and sweaty. It was August 6th, August, and I sat down and in a fold-up chair, put my Pepsi in the holder on the arm, and all of a sudden up on the slope, you just heard this, and there was 2 cedar trees, probably, I guess, 5-6 inches in diameter, shaking violently like a ghost or a demon in a spooky movie. And I looked at my bush dog, who was trained to spin bears so I could get away or get a shot in him. I'm like, Landy, get him. And he ran up the slope and he looked behind the 2 shaking trees and he just launched, did a 180 in the air, landed with his tail between his legs and got the hell out of there, running over the driftwood because there was a huge high tide that was floating, and jumps in the tin dinghy. I'm like, okay, what the heck's up with that? And then all of a sudden, this, up to like, get me my gun, because it's a defensive situation for me. Yeah. And Ryan's out on the boat. I had my 12-passenger aluminum 32-foot tour boat and anchor on a mooring buoy with a line going from the port and starboard to the edge of the bay and a stern line going to the where the cabins are so I can keep the bow in the waves because it's blowing 35 knots westerly, big wind, and there's waves coming in the bay. And I'm like, okay, well, my 338 Seiko is out on the boat. I'm like, well, give me an axe or a machete. So they gave me, I think it was a machete. And as soon as I got it, I looking around, and all of a sudden this big boulder with the two shaking trees there comes rolling down the slope. And it's, my desk here is 6 feet long and 4 feet high. That's how big that boulder was. It was a big one. So now I got the message. I'm being aggressively, I guess you could say, attacked by a Sasquatch. But knowing bush, you don't just look at what might be something that's trying to draw your attention. You look around. So I look like this to my right, and behind the cookhouse cabin, it's 20 feet long. Give it another 12 feet. So 32, 35 feet away in the forest wall, cedar trees, is this chest up of this huge Sasquatch looking at me. And I took right away, and I looked at him. I looked at where the top of his head was in level with a certain branch on a tree. And all of a sudden he just looked at me, and we stared at each other for a few seconds, and he just got a big grimace. See the teeth like big chiclets, gum, and the yellow-brown staining, and you can see the pinkish meat inside his lips. And I'm just like, Jesus. Okay, they're getting the hell out of here. And my sister took off, running to the dinghy where my dog was sitting. And I'm like, slow down. She looked like Jesus Christ trying to walk on water. And all this floating driftwood. And I'm like, you're going to break your leg. And I told Ryan and Dutch kid, get in that other dinghy and get out to the boat. So I'm just like, okay, I got some machete. Okay, I've been told, get the hell out of here. And I'm leaving. Not that I want to, but I get a little gun I got, we were just arrived there a few hours before. I left my gun in the boat. There's nothing I can do offensively to the two Sasquatches I suspect are there. So when I get in the dinghy, my sister grabs that stern line, starts pulling it, and almost flips us over. It was one of those, I think you call it John boat, those rectangle aluminum duck punts. So anyway, I'm like, slow down, you're going to flip us. We got on the boat, cut the lines. Hugo, the Dutch kid's almost crying. Ryan, he's que sera. He don't care. He smokes pot, so he was calm as can be. And I said, make sure those sidelines are far away. I don't want to get rope on my wheel. And they're giving me the all clear. They cut the bow line through it, the float, threw it off to the side. Kick ahead. So I kicked ahead and went around the corner to where there's a abandoned log landing for sorting logs and skidding them into the salt water. They build these massive rafts, and a tugboat tows them to the sawmills down in the cities to the south. But they had this huge derelict. It wasn't derelict. It was still floating, but it was a steel barge that they used to transport rail cars from Vancouver to Vancouver Island. And it's, no longer needed. And it's anchored out as a breakwater for that westerly wind swell, so they can make their log rafts without big waves coming in. So I told everyone, let's tie up to that and we'll sleep on the boat tonight. My sister would have nothing to do with it. No, you get me out of here. Bring me back to Sewid. I said, it's westerly 35 to 40. There's a big ebb tide. I can't go back to Sewid, even though it's a half-hour run on flat calm. There's mountains of waves out there that are big tide rip curlers like Hawaii 5-0. I've already popped my windows in that boat and that westerly down there. I don't want to do it again or sink. So I said, I'll run across channel because I'm going to be riding 3/4 on the backs of the waves, and they're not as big in front of my camp as they are towards the town of Sewid where I lived and the marina is. So I'm running across, and I grabbed my bag cell phone. I phoned my dad, and I told him to get a hold of Adam, our family elder, or Helicum, our chief speaker, and ask him, this is what happened. I told him what happened at the camp. We're leaving now, going to Port Neville to the government dock. And I said, ask Adam why the Chonok or the Sasquatches are getting aggressive with me and keep picking on me. I remember talking, and I looked at Louise, and I said, look out your window. And she's sitting across from me. She looked out. We're on top of this wave, and it's like a 15-foot hole to the bottom of the wave. I said, see why we're not going to Sewid? Those waves are 4 times bigger down south of here. by the dock. So anyway, we got to Port Neville. I finished talking with Dad, and we tied up. I talked to the lady who was a good friend of mine who had a house at the top of the dock, and she looked after the dock and the post office that's there, even though there's only a few people living across the inlet and up inlet. But anyways, I talked to her, and she said, "Oh, just tell your sister she can stay in my daughter's room. She's not here." So I told my sister back at the boat, and she's like, "Nope, I'm staying right here on the boat. I don't want to be anywhere near that bush." And so she gave us some blankets, and we all slept on the boat that night. Next morning, it was tide had changed to flood. The wind was down considerably, so we ran back to Sewid, and my sister jumped in her car, left, and I don't think she's gone into the bush camping ever since. She probably never will.
Good story.
Yeah, you got a good laugh at me the other week when I messaged you. I was watching one of your videos online and everything, and you were sitting there talking about the whistle, and you started doing the whistle and stuff like that. And I had that happen to me before my encounter happened. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be whistling back at them. And this is when I was a skeptic. I didn't believe in them yet. And, it was the middle of the night. I get whistled at. I mimic it back to it. And we did it a couple times at each other. Can you talk a little bit on that with the whistling? Well, is it like communication, or is it something, things like that?
Remember what I've taught you so far. They're human. So everything we have, they have as well. So yes, they do have communication. Yes, they sing. Yes, they hum. Yes, they have culture. Do they have religion? I don't know. And but communication is like any other Indian before contact and just afterwards. Body language, vocal language, singing, drumming. So everything Sasquatch is doing we've already know that Indians did it up until contact and just afterwards, and some of us still do it. So when they whistle, like when early 1990s, I went with my girlfriend who was a crew person and my good friend Trevor, who helped me 2 years before, 2 or 3 years before, put a 26-foot trailer on my Indian Reserve Island out in off northeastern Vancouver Island for a Native Watchman's program, tourist project we were doing in the summers. And we built a 10x10 addition. The year before, second year we closed the camp down in October, he was walking to the trailer hitch area of the trailer to put the big D-cell 12-volt battery down for the radio and the lights that we brought out a few weeks earlier to charge up. And he just dropped it. I'm in the kitchen looking out as he drops his D-cell battery. No one drops a D-cell battery from stand-up position. He's 6'6", I think. And his eyes just go huge, and he turns and runs. Well, I run straight down to the end of the trailer, lift the mattress on my bed, grab the 30 and 12 gauge, run into Trevor in the kitchen, give him the rifle, and I'm like, he just turns and runs outside. We both go out and are looking around. I'm thinking a big bear, whack the son of a gun or whatever. And he starts tracking a bit, and he's just like, "Oh, it's gone now." But I was seeing these big impressions in the soil. I didn't say anything. But that night I woke up and he was sleeping, and he had the curtains drawn and everything in the trailer, which he never did. And the next day after we closed camp, and this big wood boat from the Whale Watch Company came 56 feet long and was towing my speedboat, because we used that to shuttle stuff from the camp onto the boat. And me and Trevor sat on the hatch covers, lit up our cigarettes, because we can't smoke inside the boat. And I said, "Trevor, guess we should say goodbye to our camp, eh?" And so we did. And all of a sudden he looks at me and goes, "That wasn't a bear last night. I spooked a sleeping something that stood up, covered in hair, black, looked at me and turned and ran with 2 legs." I said, "Oh, you saw Sasquatch?" He goes, "I saw something. That's all I'll say." So anyway, he's on the boat with me a few years later, and we go in there and anchor up, another native crewman, and we witnessed 2 Sasquatches. Like what we heard was a bang against the trailer. Like something hit it. It's aluminum siding, I guess. It's metal anyway. And then we saw these 2 figures walk in front of the trailer. the trailer's some 8.5, 9 feet tall. And, you know, it was like, wow, those things are big. They weren't as tall as the trailer, but you can see the bigger one was close. You can see a little bit of distance from the top of the head and the edge of the trailer roof. And then all of a sudden you heard that warbling, whistling, lip slapping. And then you could tell it was a female because it was higher pitched. Warble, whistle, chirp back at the male. They were probably saying, "What's that stupid boat doing hanging out? We want to go harvest on the beach." And, you know, and the plums in the back of, walk the trail to the back of the abandoned native village. This stupid hairless humans are anchored out. Yeah, I agree with you there, husband. Damn hairless, stinky buggers. You know, that's probably what they said in their communication. And then, you know, it's like, wow. So I ran in, told Jojo, my girl, turn the boombox off. I think we got 2 Sasquatches on the beach. So her and Trevor came out. It whistle chirped again. We got the really bad smell because now it's an armpit erupted on us. Now we know it's a Sasquatch for sure. So we put the big spotlight on, you know, probably 12, 16 inches diameter up on the roof, and we lit them up. And the big female was on the high tide part of the deep beach, and she just dropped on her knees and head down with her arms like that, with her buttocks facing us. The big male standing in the spruce saplings that were at that time probably about 12 feet high and grass all around in between the spruce saplings, drops on his knee and puts his arm up. And then you can see the 2 eyes, 1 eye, 1.5 eye, reflecting from the spotlight as his arm is moving and he's breathing, looking at the light. The female on the beach, you could see her eyeball under her right armpit as she's in that fetal position with her bum pointing our way, but she's looking with her right eye at the spotlight. So we had it on. We threw apples and eggs and potatoes. We grabbed a 35 millimeter Instamatic camera, no film, of course, tore cupboards apart. My girlfriend, she couldn't find it. We put guns on them, young, dumb, stupid. My girlfriend said, "Tom, you know, nothing might happen to you, but the curse, it'll happen to me and my boys and your loved ones. You ever shoot at a Sasquatch, you're going to suffer because all your loved ones are going to die tragically." And we have numerous stories about that. So I looked at Dean and I said, "What's caliber is your gun?" He goes, "243. Well, it's just a little BB gun, 243. Real men pack 30 cal and better." And so I'm just like, barrels up. So everyone barrels up. Me too. I got a 300 Savage that I had leveled out the window. And we put the guns away, and that's when we started throwing apples and eggs and potatoes, trying to get them to move. We wanted to see them, but they would not move. And it's getting on over 20 minutes, close to 25 minutes or more. And my boat was built in 1927, wood salmon seine boat, 54 feet long. It's a company boat, so I pick it up every June from the company in Vancouver, British Columbia. I don't know the maintenance records on that boat other than me using it. And I don't know how old those batteries are or how good they are downstairs. So I'm like, I got to turn the spotlight off. I don't want to drain the batteries down. So I turned it off, and that's when you heard them walk into the bush, 2 of them. And all of a sudden, this rotten tree got pushed down. You could tell it was a biggie. And the trees there were probably 30 feet higher, a little bit bigger. But you just heard that rotten tree get pushed down. The next day, we went in and truthed it. It was a rotten hemlock, probably about 12, 14 inches in diameter, the trunk. But then you heard them walk into the forest, and it was quiet. So Jojo and Trevor, they're gone. And Dean and I stayed up. That big male came down about an hour later and walked along the side of the boat on the other side, opposite side of the bay. And in the moonlight, Dean, "What the hell is that?" And that thing you hear go, "Whoa!" And it stood up to its full height, walking, swinging its arms, and you can see the hair hanging down. And we heard it walk into the forest, saw it, and it sounded like when you grab a plastic tarp and shake it. That's what it sounds like when you walk through slough bush. It's it's the ground cover bush that grows here, big leaves, but it sounds like when you walk through it, it's real noisy. And you could hear that big Sasquatch walking parallel in the boat, walking the same way you just came, but in the bush, we can't see him because of the trees and the slough. and he stops and he whistle chirps, and then you hear the high pitched one way back inside the bush at the head of the bay where he came from, whistle chirp, and you can hear the two of them walk together in the slough. And then they turned and walked westward into the back of the village, and we never heard him again. They went into the village because it's first week October, and the blackberries are still out, which are an invasive species, but they're all over through the village. The rose hips are out still, and the wild plum trees, they're all through the village. Crab apple, and there might be some apples in the first week October still remaining. So that's what they were going to eat when we disrespected them and had anchored out in their A to B path that we were trying to get to. And then all of a sudden we light them up with a spotlight. But thankfully they never threw anything at us, the big male. Because I remember at one point I was hiding behind the galley door a bit with Dean in front of me, who was hiding behind the table side stays going up into the mast and rigging of the boat. And I was thinking, if that Sasquatch picks up a rock or a big chunk of driftwood and throws it at us, at least the side stays rigging, Dean, and the galley door will protect me to get inside to grab a gun. But, it was something to see that. And then when I came out, I told my dad, and he said, here's a phone number. This white-haired, bearded guy showed up. Quite the character. His name is Dr. John Bindernagel. He came and interviewed me about Sasquatch. You might want to call him. So I phoned him that afternoon and told him, oh, yeah, I can stop by tomorrow on my way up the highway, going to Campbell River. I'll stop by your house in Courtney. And the next day I met Dr. John Bindernagel, and a friendship would start that lasted until 2017 when he passed away. And boy, did I do some amazing investigating with him.
Oh man, you're so lucky to have a friend like him. That's really awesome. Because I've seen a lot of things with him in it, and every time I do see like a documentary, I always watched it after I dived into this subject. The guy was very knowledgeable, and you're so blessed to have a relationship and a friendship with him.
Oh yeah, and I've been out with Adam Davies. He came up to British Columbia, and we went on a yacht, friend of mine's yacht, and beautiful. That's the way to investigate, going on a yacht that was made for a movie actress that won the Oscar in 1958 for the movie Stagecoach, where she starred in that movie with Rock Hudson. Her name was Claire Trevor, and she built this beautiful Portuguese bridge, white fiberglass yacht, and called it Lady Claire. And it's all brass eagle fixtures throughout, and wood. It's just gorgeous. It's $1 million yacht as far as I'm concerned. And we've used that numerous times, Sasquatch investigating, because Buddy owns it. And Adam Davies came up, and we went out with him, and we recorded a Sasquatch for 16 minutes, 40 seconds on the Shellfish Beach at half tide rising with a forward-looking infrared Scout 2 device. And all of us were passing around another one, and we all got to see that slur image at night of that Sasquatch. That was pretty impressive. And that earlier that evening, when we were just before dark and into dark, we were at the beach on a 0 low tide, which is a monster low tide. It's huge. A lot of beach exposed. That's why we're there. We wanted to be at a Shellfish Beach where the Sasquatches would be. And when we went ashore, Adam and I had to grab Adam. Hey, stop! Walk in the Sasquatch tracks. You could see the big impressions on that beach at low tide. And we saw that Sasquatch that night. The first night we had anchored out when we got there, because there's a place called Seymour Narrows just north of Campbell River, and it's a very tidal, narrow, turbulent area. It's a killer. It's killed so many hundreds of mariners. So you got to go through, on small tides, so the currents, hopefully under, in your favor, because if you're bucking a 10-knot current and your boat only goes 9 knots, you ain't going to make forward progress. And if you go through there on a 13-knot tide and you're going with it and you don't know how to read the whirlpools and the overfalls, you're going to be crab and prawn food. You're going to drown and flip over. So you go through on slack tides, especially when you got a 16-foot high to a 0-foot low tide. That week, you're going to have monster tides. You're going to have 14-knot currents in that channel. And the Clattawa, that yacht, only does, I think, 12 knots. So we went at nighttime when it was slack tide. We got to the Narrows on slack tide. There's no current. So we're storming through at 12 knots. And then we get up to the bay, and because it's a huge tide, a lot of the driftwood, and I'm talking logs 60 feet long and some of them 6 foot in diameter, they're drifting everywhere. So you don't want to travel at night. You're going to stove your bow in and sink, or a log will get in your propeller system and pop a blade off for the whole propeller. So as soon as we got to Seymour Narrows, we took a starboard right turn and went into a small inlet, and it's phenomenal all-weather anchorage. So we went in there, we anchored up, and our plan was to pop the corks, have a few wines, and then the next day we would head further up at daylight. We had an objective. We were going further north. But after we anchored up, we all went outside up top on the open bridge, and it wasn't raining. A little bit of stars are out. I looked at Adam Davies. He's the famous Adam Davies that you see on TV, and he was the one who found the Yeti track for Expedition Bigfoot with Josh Gates and everything. So,
It's not yet.
No. He found orang pendek when he was down in Irian Jaya and Philippine area. The Yeti track is the one that's in Expedition Unknown that Adam found. But anyway, we're up the top. I'm smoking a cigarette. The young ladies that are on board and film crewman, they've hired young man too, their age. They're all smoking a tubage. We're out there enjoying the sun. And all of a sudden I go to Adam. Hey, Adam, make a sound like a Sasquatch. Yeah, I just want to see if he's heard one or not. He goes, well, I won't do a Sasquatch, but I'll do a mountain gorilla from the Congo, Mount Kilimanjaro. But I won't finish it off like they do, because after they finish roaring, they pee all over their legs. So the girl's like, oh, no, don't do that. We don't want to see your peeing. So he just huffs and puffs, and all of a sudden he just lets out this bellowing roar. And all of a sudden when he ends it, up the hillside, we're like, everyone's eyes. And I'm just like, damn, I didn't suspect that. And I'm like, try it again. So he tried again, but it never vocalized again. And went aside and told the captain, my buddy Ron, and his brother, they were inside, and like, wow, we just had a Sasquatch answer Adam. Wow, what's the call? I said, well, maybe in the morning we should go to the beach with the dinghies and do some investigating, tracking, which we did. We found tracks. We found broken cockle shells. Cockle is a type of shellfish, a bivalve, a clam.
Yeah.
Like a scallop, the fringes don't go horizontally around the shell. They go from the back hinge to the forward. And even the cockle, like a scallop, has like the shell is almost like gears, ripples that interlock. And they're a delicacy when you steam them for 45 minutes, because I don't like them chewy, and then you cut them in half and fry them in butter or eat them steamed. It looks like a shrimp prawn tail. And it tastes like abalone and prawns, shrimp. And it's very unique taste. And the texture, it's a delicacy. It's just mind-blowing how good cockles are. But it's also the favorite food of Sasquatch. And this dude here behind me called Bukwus, which is the hair-covered bipedal small creature, chief of the ghost world in my culture, known as stickmen and little people. We can do that in another podcast, but talk about little people. But that's a mask of it there. My wife dances a different one that we own with regalia. She does it as well with the chunuk, the Sasquatch mask we have for regalia. But it was neat to see the broken cockle shells and the tracks. So then we made a decision. We're going to go on the big low tide at night, just before dark. We're going to go there, and that's when we found the tracks. We thought we saw some eye shine, and then we went back to the boat. The corks were popped again. Beer tabs were opened, and rule kicks in. Once you're drinking the wobbly pops, there's going to be no using the dinghies. So, we're all sitting in there, and Adam goes out in the back deck to have a smoke, and he opens the back door, and he goes, Tom, you better come out here and take a look at this. And that's when I grabbed the Scout two and lifted it up, and you could see it squatting. Then it stood up on two legs and walked, and then everyone came out, and I had the wherewithal to grab my cell phone and put it up against the Fleur Scout 2's eyepiece, and that's what we were able to record that Sasquatch with. The next night, next day, we investigated more. The videographer crashed his drone. Peggy was paddling her zebra stripe kayak. She's an avid kayaker. Beautiful February day. You know, it wasn't raining, wasn't windy, so everyone's going to be outside doing their thing. And Peggy's paddling along the shore, and Buddy's on the bow with me, and he's running his drone. And, you know, I'm checking it out, and all of a sudden I told him, I said, hey, there's an eagle above Peggy in the tree. So he's going up above Peggy to go get this eagle, but I didn't know what happened. All I seen is Peggy to start digging in with her paddle. I'm thinking maybe a Sasquatch threw a rock at her or roared at her, because we know they're there. But what it was she saw the drone hit a branch and hit the water, and she went over to see if she would retrieve it, but it sunk. So anyway, we went and brought the videographer in there. Actually had him by the ankles when he jumped over the side of the dinghy and grabbed his drone, but that was toast, hit the salt water. But that evening, when it got dark, in between rainstorms, because Fleurs don't work in mist and fog and rain, but in between rainstorms, Peggy and I, with Adam Davies, we put him in a small dinghy. We brought him to shore, gave him my Bouncing Betty 12 gauge, and without flashlight or headlight, he's walking along the beach. Everyone on the boat are videotaping with the Fleurs and cameras, reenacting, so we could see how big that Sasquatch was in comparison to Adam Davies's signature on the Fleur. I pull offshore, shut the dinghy off. Me and Peggy are just sitting there waiting for him on the radio to, you know, give us a call when they're done and everything. And all of a sudden, Adam's just like, come pick me up, come pick me up, come pick me up. And it roared at me. It's like, how many feet away did you say, Peggy?
What's that?
How many feet away was that Sasquatch?
Like 3 feet.
Yeah, Adam's like on the radio. It's like 3 feet away from me. So I just start her up, kick her in the head, get on that beach. I got big spotlight. I'm trying to run the controls and the steering wheel. And Peggy's reaching out to grab the 12 gauge and help Adam aboard. And all I'm worried about is not hitting the barnacle so it punctures the Buddy's dinghy, because I'm going to have to buy it. And also I look up and there's that beep, Sasquatch looking at us, disappears. I'm like, Peggy, a Sasquatch is looking at us. And did it twice, but Peggy was too busy with Adam. She never got to see it. And we pulled away, got out of there, and Adam's all excited. And you can remember, he's a bushman too. And he's saying, in his English accent, this the bloody thing was like 3 feet away from me and growled at me. Even though he had my 12 gauge, he wanted to get the hell out of there. But anyway, we got back to the boat. And, you know, it was an adventure of a lifetime. And, you know, we got to see that. You know, it's what I love about Sasquatchology and the Sasquatch industry. You know, I'm a major player in it because I run the Sasquatch store and museum, and now we're expanding the museum to be almost 2,000 square feet. We just purchased with, and if you're interested, SasquatchTheLegend.com. That's who I work for in Forks, Washington, 2 blocks away from my house. But the museum, we lucked out in the fall. We're sitting on the couch here, and Peggy's like communicating with a friend of hers from work, retired. And she goes, oh, look, someone's got a private collection of casts, Bigfoot casts for sale. So we're looking through it. And so I texted the guy, and next thing you know, we're talking. And I'm like, I just got to clear it with my bosses, but we'll buy the whole collection. And we ended up driving to Moscow, Idaho from Washington State, and we bought 38 plaster casts in like framed wood cases with glass, with provenance of newspaper clippings and little write-ups and everything and pictures. And Jeff Meldrum made all of the gray ones. So they're flipping collector's pieces.
Wow.
He gave us a butt print, hand prints, knuckle prints, all kinds of other stuff. You know, I even have like a Bigfoot crossing sign that's signed by all 4 members of Finding Bigfoot, even though I do know Cliff well, and I've been at a conference with Bobo and know him well. And So, but it's neat. I got a piece of history, their 4 signatures, which will be in the museum. And then we'll have all my masks and native regalia of Sasquatch ×2 and of course the little people. I've been making these panels, blueprints for plastic panels like you see in Cliff Barrickman's studio, Sasquatch Museum and other museums. Well, fortunately, Ken and Laura Hamilton, who own SasquatchLegend.com, they own Source One Plastics in Phoenix, Arizona, where they live, and in Alabama. And they can make anything plastic or plexiglass. So I get to have in-house made pictures and write-ups, especially a lot of my knowledge in our museum. And, I look at all the other museums. I look at the videos on YouTube. I look at the pictures and people's posts. And, I don't want to duplicate them. But, yeah, I do have duplicate tracks. I got, Paul Freeman tracks. Replicas, Patty, of course, Bossberg, Cripplefoot, Yeti, Nepal with Eric Shipton back in the Himalaya days, and the list goes on. So it's a phenomenal collection, plus all of my stuff that's going to go in there. Like this house is filled with my original art of Sasquatch that I've done for the T-shirts like mine here, and 10 or 12 other designs that we sell in SasquatchLegend.com. You'll see it on our online website. T-shirts, mugs, cups, shower curtains, bath mats, the list goes on. But, I'm lucky to be able to be a well-known Sasquatch investigator, had numerous encounters with Sasquatch through my lifetime and still do. And to live in my retirement, getting close to my retirement age and live in Forks, Washington. Forks, Washington, I'm making into what it is. It is the capital of Sasquatch in all of the Pacific Northwest and Washington State. You cannot compare to the amount of Sasquatch imagery, logos, the museum here, and, even our hardware store, Decker Hardware, has a logo of a Sasquatch and sells T-shirts and hoodies in there of that. He's carrying a machine gun, mind you, but, at least that's his image. And there's Sasquatch everywhere.
Yeah, I was just I was just about to say, I see that you're wearing your hats to Sasquatch Island and things like that. If you could talk about, websites, TikTok, Facebook pages, if you could tell people where they can find that at of yours.
Yeah, well, SasquatchLegend.com for the store and online store and for the museum. And you can order anything. And if you guys want, I had one person last month that emailed me personally and said, my family member was at the store. You gave them your business card for the store as well as your personal social media contacts on the back. And for me, because I'm an avid Sasquatcher, I've ordered this online. And when you do package it for mailing, can you please videotape Sewid putting my, when you ordered an abalone necklace, like Bobo wears. So anyway, I was boxing it up and videotaping it all. It's only like a 35-second video because I had to send it to him. And he was just tickled pink. He just loved that. Oh, I got this. I go and I got and see that package. Like, your fingerprints were. I kept the case. I'm just laughing. People come in and get me autograph my T-shirts and date it, and then they bring it home and frame it, and then they take a picture of it and send it to me. I'm humbled. It blows me away. I just, it's special when someone does that. But they're also speculating that Tom's going to be 6 feet under one day, and that T-shirt's going to be worth $500 or if not over $1,000 each. Because of signature and the date and the picture of me autographing it. So, if you want to make some money on my death, come to SasquatchLegend.com and buy and get me to sign and date.
Oh, yeah, I was checking it out. I got my eye on a few things on the website that I'm going to buy. And when I do, I'm going to reach out to you, see if you can sign for me.
Yeah.
Like I want to eventually have some things I could have in the background. And so I was really checking out the website and
it's Ken and Lori, they we work together, but they mainly are ordering stuff. Like today I got 108 snow globes that have a Sasquatch inside and says Forks, Washington on it. It's pretty cool. I was looking at it. I even told my worker, I said, you watch, someone's going to order one and get me to autograph the bottom. to say that Tom packaged it, autographed it on the city. He goes, they really do that? And I'm like, dude, they really do that. They get me to autograph everything. And I said, you can see me on TV and that. But if you want to investigate me, you just go to Sasquatch Island Facebook group, join it. Please abide by the rules. If you can read them, read them. I'm strictly 100% critterist. I've had over 30 encounters with Sasquatch, a lot of them close at hand. And I've never had a cloaking, mind speaking, portal jumping, orb turning, run up a ladder or down, UFO flying, mind speaking Sasquatch. So with all those encounters, I'm not going to jump the fence and go on the other side, what I call woo woo. No disrespect. It's just, I'm known as an Indian, suck it up, buttercup. It's a term. And, so to me, when you come into Sasquatch Island, you got to be, as I teach you, as Sasquatch shamanism, learn from them and learn respect. So don't come in there. You wouldn't see me as an Anglican walking into a synagogue and trying to shove my interpretation of Anglican Christian faith down a Jew's throat sideways. So be respectful. Don't come into Sasquatch Island and comment out or post anything woo-woo. And don't dare circle any blurry pictures for parabolia or just circling. I hate it when people circle pictures. It's like, dude, that's a shadow. Get over it. It's, you can look at a bowl of cornflakes and you'll see Sasquatches, So, and then SasquatchIsland.com, the website, you'll see my homepage. Scroll to the bottom, you'll see the Olympic Peninsula interactive map, the Canadian my map for Vancouver Island, British Columbia coast, and the Canadian Pacific Northwest part of the United States map. Carrie Kilmurray Clausen, who's a dear friend of ours who lives on Vancouver Island, she's the one who does the map. It is phenomenal. You hit the Sasquatch silhouette, little balloon pops up. There's the encounter. Hit the footprint. There's the tracks observed, pictures in some cases. Hit the little bullhorn, vocalization report. It's amazing. Go to northern Vancouver Island, and you'll notice that most of the reports in northern Vancouver Island and the islands northeast of there in my territories are mostly my encounters and reports I got from other people, but including all of the central to north part of Vancouver Island. I was scrolling it today, checking it out. But anyway, it's got a lot of the reports that I've come across. And then TikTok, if you're into that, I do the odd TikTok. And, I have Instagram, but I don't really use it. I don't really understand it. Doesn't seem that.
I don't understand that one either. No, I follow all your pages and everything like that. I enjoy
and then
it.
Want to see Sasquatch, get your butt out here. Or I tell people as well, if you're in some other state or province, pass the hat around to your Sasquatch enthusiasts. Use the modern day most powerful tool in the world for communication called Facebook, and post out there that, hey, we want to fly Tom out here so that he can come and teach us how to get a close encounter of the hairy kind, and teach you what I teach on expeditions. I don't mind flying somewhere where there's activity, and everyone throws $100 in a hat. Pretty soon you got air flight, my day rate's covered, and I'm out there for 2 or 3 days and nights teaching you guys how to Sasquatch. Or come to Forks or meet me up on Vancouver Island. They'll take you out in the expedition. It's in the websites, the expeditions page. You're going to be sending me a link for this podcast, videocast, and Peggy, you'll probably post it on our podcast videocast page so others can go there and listen to the numerous pod and videocasts I've done. I've probably cracked over 200 by now. And, people will phone me and, like tonight when I got on with you, I'm like, I've been on this one before. I don't know.
No, we're too small over here on YouTube. We moved over from Spotify over to here. So
yeah, I'm on YouTube as well. My YouTube channel. I don't post a lot on there, but also if you're interested in, I got a gallery page for my West Coast native art. I do everything, but mainly Sasquatch. And I have these beautiful wood bowls that I paint designs on that were made by a master lathe turner who passed away. Here's one of them here.
Wow, and that's beautiful.
Interior. So I'll paint the Sasquatch on this one. And, I sell them. That's, one of my revenue generators. And, the gallery page is there, and then I can't remember what else is on the website, but it's pretty informative. And, by all means, if you have a report, definitely email it to me, tom.sewid@gmail.com. It's on my website, and that way I can put your report on the map, I send it to Carrie, forward the email on to her, and she'll post it on the map, especially for Washington State. We're really trying to gather more, or British Columbia for people listening. Even Alberta, Northwest Territories, Yukon will post it. We just don't want to do all of the United States because the other guy is doing his here in the U.S. And, Kerry doesn't want to step on his toes because they communicate back and forth. But it's mainly Olympic Peninsula because I'm here. We want to get more reports. But, yeah, it's crazy. My buddy here, he come into the store 2 years ago when I first started in July. He says, I'm a rafting guide. I raft people down the river for ecotourism. And this is what's been happening. I got this text from my boss the other day. He does the sports fishing in a boat, riverboat. He was tied to a tree in the river under these cliffs, and they were fishing. And all of a sudden, something angry and mean up on the bush was making noise and threw a couple big boulders down upriver from the boat. So he cut the line and got out of there. And so he said, do you want to come down the river with me on the weekend? I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. So we rafted the Upper Hoh River from basically where the gate is for the Hoh Rainforest, the national park. We floated down to the bridge on the 101 highway that goes through the Olympic Peninsula west side, got out on a trailer and went home. Next day, we went and launched there at the bridge and floated almost to the mouth of the Hoh River, but you can't because it's Indian Reserve. So we're just outside of the Indian Reserve on a private gravel bar where we pulled the raft out. I couldn't believe how many tree structures we saw. It was just crazy. Teepee structures. And then, of course, he's asking me, what's that mean? And I'm like, well, you see the shallow riffle, ankle deep for a Sasquatch? Well, all the salmon, as you know, because you're a fisherman, and the steelhead and the trout, during the daytime, so eagles and other predators can't get them, they're in the deep pools, and you can't see them because they're so well camouflaged. Sasquatches know that. That's why they're the humans of the night. So what happens is at nighttime, they go into the river ankle deep. They just stand there. And just like World War I, when the whistles were blowing, the soldiers went up the ladders across the barbed wire and into no man's land in mass. Well, that's what salmon do at night when it gets dark, and trout and steelhead in mass. They come up and then they reach the 4-inch deep riffle going from bank to bank. They got no choice. Just like those soldiers, they got to go into that hostile environment. And as they go through, there's the Sasquatch picking them up, grab another one, go sit on the beach for a minute, fill his belly. Well, better go grab another fish. I ate one. Now he walks into the forest with 2 fish for his family. So the teepee structure tells the other Sasquatches going upriver, downriver, or coming out of the bush, this place is occupied. This fishing station is mine. Please be respectful and move on. It's a long river. There's a lot of fish. So that's what those are along the banks. Some of them, because we found a place of 3 together on an oxbow peninsula, is a boundary marker between the lower river Hoh Clan and the upper river Hoh Clan. So if you use the formula I helped develop, that for every 7 miles of a river with shallow riffles, where a Sasquatch can stand in there at night and harvest fish, you put a factor of 4 Sasquatches in that 7 miles. So if you look at the Hoh River or any other river and use that formula, and you should be looking at 24 to 30 Sasquatches living on the Hoh River and its tributaries. When you do that formula for the Olympic Peninsula with all the salmon, trout, and steelhead rivers, and this place is unique because it has 12 months of the year there's salmon in rivers. I've never heard of that in British Columbia or Alaska. So you're looking at probably 168 to 220 plus Sasquatches just on the Olympic Peninsula. There's a reason why I get a weekly report during the summer season in that store from people driving on Highway 101. It's on like Donkey Kong here. And when we go out investigating, we're hearing them. Hopefully we'll start recording them. We just got a Peggy just bought us a big 22-inch parabolic listening device. So not only can we hear hummingbirds fart at night from 200 yards, we're going to be able to hear Sasquatch and record it.
That's
It'll be a loud fart.
Yeah, but no, it's a lot of fun out here. So get out here. Definitely when the museum's open another, probably wait a bit. I just got bad news yesterday. They're going to replace the roof of the building where the museum's going to go. And they have to change the tiles because of some of the leakage that's happened through the years. So I don't think I'm going to see that museum open up as I planned for the July long weekend. I think we're probably going to be looking at more like August, if not September. So, but be patient and join Sasquatch Island on Facebook, because I like to post. I love Facebook because it's the most powerful communications tool on earth. So I can go on Facebook and post in Sasquatch Island with some 18,000 members, I think I have. But then share, hit the share button, as they should with all of our posts, you included. And then when I go into other groups and share it, I to do a track, and I'm over 250,000 people view a post every 3 days when I do post on Sasquatch Island. And, you keep track of it. That way, that in October, they just announced that the conference on Vancouver Island, SquatchCon, that was to be held this weekend, they canceled it and moved it forward to mid-October. And Peggy and I will be performing there. We're just waiting for another announcement from New York, whether or not we're going to be invited to that one this fall. And then another one that's possibly going to happen along the I-5 corridor on Washington State. I just can't say where it's until they announce it. But, we're always getting invited. And also, if you want to see our famous, mesmerizing, entertaining, educational, humorous stage show, reach out to your Sasquatch conference people and say, look, it's getting pretty dry as a popcorn fart, seeing the same old non-Indian guys over and over and over tell the same thing they told at 60 other conferences. We all friends, we all get along, but after Meldrum and Cantrell and Peter Byrne died, and one other, I believe, I can't remember who, but just you see in some of the posters, some of these conferences, like, who are these people? We don't even know who they are, and you're gonna go rent a hotel room, maybe take an airplane to go to a Sasquatch conference, and you don't know who that person is. You watch the people you see on podcasts, call us what we are. We are Sasquatch celebrities. Sasquatch Island, Cliff Barrickman, Adam Davies, Paul Freeman now, after his dad passed, he's really getting a lot of traction. And, others that go on that we see, those are the ones people want to see, especially if you're going to go to a conference and are enticed to pay $100 or more for a VIP ticket to have a meal or a barbecue with a Sasquatch celebrity. You better make sure that they're well known. And, and they also bring in something that's, not dry as a popcorn fart. And it's the same old lecture about, oh yeah, we saw this. And, you hear the same people, some of them will put you to sleep. I won't say his name, but I said it earlier. I saw a Sasquatch. So Sasquatch Island, I'm a professional entertainer. I was in an abandoned native village for 16 years, doing daily late spring, summer, early fall tours to people that came in kayaks. Most of them were professionals and wealthy because they were on a guided Sasquatch thing, to tour sailboats and tour ships, to mega yachts, like meeting some of the big movie stars and celebrities and internet gurus that we hear about. And one of them I met, two of them passed away. But anyway, I had to make sure I was reading my audience. I had to entertain them, educate them, enthrall them, reach in and grab their heart and hold it till the end when I went, in my language, halakulasla, go in peace. Your end's what I have to say. And see them all stand up and be like sea lions giving me flipper claps. That's like the gladiator. And I do it sometimes at conferences, because I like to have fun. I like to hear people laugh. I like to see them smile. I'll end it all native and everything. And they're all like that. And after it's silent, are you not entertained? Like the gladiator. They just are rough. you know, and that's what your performers at Sasquatch's conferences better be like, because if they're dry as a popcorn fart, they ain't gonna buy your tickets next year.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and I would love to see you come out here to Michigan or Minnesota or even Wisconsin. It's like those are 3 states. I'm up here in the Upper Peninsula, so.
Well, in the UP of Minnesota, we have our we call him our other son. He's 30 years old now, I think 32, but his name's Andre. Just built like a Sasquatch, huge muscles. He did things he lifts. I can't lift with one arm, but he's our Minnesota chapter president of Sasquatch Island. So if you want to go on an expedition with Andre, I'm sure he'll take you along, or you want to meet him and chatter like 2 Sasquatches about Sasquatch, or even invite him on your podcast. Just get a hold of me. I got to go through the channels and ask him permission if it's all right to give his email and phone number out, out of respect. But Andre, he comes out here all the time. He's going to be out here at the end of August for like 10 days, and we're going to go investigating. We were investigating 2 Augusts ago, or 3 Augusts ago, before I took the job here. We came here to stay at this house, but also to camp and investigate. And he and I smelled a Sasquatch. Just before that, it was lobbing 2 stones into our camp. Andre was downriver with his buddy just before dark and into it, just hiking around, being young, enjoying things. But yeah, he's been up to Vancouver Island with Peggy and I, and he's been to Medellin Falls at a conference, and we even, he's African American. He built like a brick shithouse, but we had him in native button blanket over his shoulder, which shows respect to our audience. And he was helping Peggy as an attendant when she was dancing the masks and regalia. So yeah, by all means, get her going in Minnesota. They need Sasquatch Island out there, and Andre will be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see you come over this way. I would definitely be there and come watch you and support you. So.
Good.
I was just out your neck of the woods last month.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I came out to visit one of my nephews, and I was only out there for 5 days. Didn't get no chance to do anything. Besides, I didn't have transportation. I had to rely on him.
But just remember, when you fly into SeaTac Airport, budgets are everything. A lot of us got to scrutinize our money, especially the price of gas now and travel. But if you fly into SeaTac Airport, you can pre-book with Dungeness, the type of crab, Dungeness bus lines, which will take you from the SeaTac Airport to Port Angeles here on the peninsula on the northeast side, big city. And then you walk across where you pull in with the bus, you walk across the bus area and you jump on number 16 Forks bus. All buses on the Olympic Peninsula are free. I can't believe how socialist they are out here having free bus service, but you don't have to put any money in. And you jump on the Forks bus and it'll drop you off right in front of SasquatchLegend.com in Forks. And then you meet me inside, and we walk 2 blocks up the street. You come to this house, stay down that hallway, and the famous Patty room 1967 got a trace of her footprint on the wall.
I'm gonna hit you up next time I'm out there.
Yeah, it's all inside are 2 queen-size beds and all kinds of Bob Gimlin and Patty paraphernalia, a signed autograph shirt of one of my designs of Patty, and a picture signed by him, and the commemoration cast with gold, and pretty neat. And bedspreads are all Sasquatch, of course, and pillows. And then I charge $375 US for the all-inclusive 24-hour period where I'll cook for you Sasquatch-related meals. Fish, salmon, meat with chanterelle mushrooms I picked in the forest here, and the list goes on. And we'll go out day and night investigating. And for $375 all-inclusive, people next door to me, I got 5 Airbnbs around this house. They're like $380 plus a night. And, for the whole package, I'm $375, food included. You go to the restaurants here and buy a burger and a beverage, and it's non-alcoholic beverage. You're looking at $26 to $30 with tip. Like Forks, man, they gouge you left, right, and center out here because we're a tourist capital. Town of Twilight, Sasquatch, and yellow banana slugs. And Tom Sewid, don't forget, I'm here.
I won't.
But I better run here. I'm a diabetic and I'm getting to my feeding time. Time to hit the trot.
Yeah, I was just thinking
Totally
that.
understand that. No, we thank you so much for coming on the show. It was an honor having you on, and like how I mentioned, I when I was trying to do the introduction, I was so excited about having you on. I was kind of almost stumbling through my words, so I apologize to people about that, but that's how excited I was.
Okay, well, don't forget, I can do Queequegwanala Thunderbird, which is actually a time traveler. But anyway, I can do episodes of Bookless, The Little People, the hair-covered one. I can do sea monsters and lake monsters, which we call sea youth in my language. And I even do ghost stuff from stories I've heard through the years.
Might have to remember that one for October around Halloween time. I'm really interested in the little people. Like that one has caught my eye over the years. You know, when they talk about the Moon Eye people and just the Puckwudgies and all this, and I'm like, well, I'm very interested in it. So
Puckwudgie, that's Bookless. Definitely give me a shout. The pictures I'll send you for the show are going to blow you off your seats.
That'd be great.
No,
this was a really good show. You really kept us entertained.
You actually answered questions for me without me having to ask a lot of it.
Are you not entertained?
Oh, I was definitely entertained.
Thanks, Tom.
Well, thank you very much. You have a good one. Don't forget to send me a link.
Oh, I will. I'll say tomorrow. Look out for it in your messenger, or I could email to you, whichever is easier.
Sure, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and to everyone listening and watching, halakulus. Go in peace and be safe out there, and always respect Sasquatch. Sasquatch lives matter.
Definitely do.
Be safe out there and respect Mother Nature.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Good night.
What an incredible interview that was. I knew this is how this show was going to go, and this is why I was very excited for it. But in 2 weeks, I do have another interview scheduled. It's going to be Val. We're bringing him on the show, talk about his encounters. And we had Val on our podcast before. He was actually our very first interview we ever did.
Yeah, he was.
When we were on Spotify. So he does this record data keeping that's really, really amazing. And he's going to be getting into all that and everything. So, and that's going to be in 2 weeks from now on a Thursday.
If you want to learn about Val, go back to our first season on Spotify and listen to that interview. The first hour talks about his career, and then the next hour he talks about Bigfoot. So we're not going to have him talk about his career because we don't want to waste that hour on stuff that's not pertaining to our channel. But the other stuff is really interesting.
He had his encounter that he had, and I'm not going to say anything more until he gets on the show. When we had him on, you heard the fear in his voice when he started going over it. So it's going to be another good show. Anything else you want to add, Todd? You're going to be featured on Jared Lowe's the Download podcast.
Yeah, I believe. Well, we're going to be doing the interview, I believe, on the 14th. I don't have it here written down in front of me. And plus, my calendar is still on me. So,
and of course, when that happens, Jared will share it on our page. I'll share it on our page and everything else. Jared's a very good buddy of ours. We're going to have him on in the future as well. So pretty much wraps up everything tonight.
If X lets me log in, I'll post it on there too. X doesn't like me, but that's why you don't see no postings on it, because it won't ever let me log in.
Yeah, I don't even mess with that site. But
and I can't remember the other ones because I hate to say this, but I despise social media, but I just
That's why I handle that kind of thing for us. So
I'm not good
if
at
you
it.
ever see us, if you ever see our channel with Entering the Unknown podcast, you're basically you're going to be talking to me. Unless it's Facebook, you will see Todd on that. But everything else, TikTok and the YouTube, you're going to be bullshit with me. So, and Facebook as well.
Email, you'll get me. You'll get me usually first if you send an email. So,
but
yeah, and you guys know the email address was been scrolling across the bottom of the screen, and probably still is. And yes, it is. Well, until next time, keep your hearts open, your minds open, your eyes open, and things will go good.
All right.
That's Daddy's
Well,
pearl of wisdom for the day.
There you have
I learned a good analogy, but it doesn't go with our show theme. But I'm going to say it anyway. When I wanted a wife, I couldn't afford one. When I finally could afford one, I didn't want one. Yeah, I'm talking to my girlfriend. So anyway, all right, guys, have a good night. Have a great next 2 weeks. We'll be back at you in 2 weeks' time, whatever date that is. But you'll know ahead. We'll give you a heads up.
Definitely will.
Anything else?
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, guys. Good night, guys, at the Backwoods, Florida boys. We'll see you guys next time. Good night.
Good night.